Live from the Pines, episode 73. Tonight we were joined by Cy Ranch High School athletic coordinator, head football coach, Coach Blaylock. How you doing tonight, Coach?
I'm good. How about yourself?
I'm doing great, but I will say this is my 73rd episode, and the intro is still the hardest part of the show. I don't know what it is about it, but it's the hardest part. But everything else is good. Got off work, went and got a steroid shot, getting under the weather, so trying to get ahead of it.
You definitely got to do that. You don't want to get behind it. You know.
No, it's actually my best friend's bachelor trip this week in Arizona, so trying to stay as healthy as possible.
I just got back from Arizona.
Really, what part?
We were in Phoenix.
Okay.
I think we were at a resort.
Yeah, we fly into Phoenix and we're in Scottsdale the whole week.
Oh yeah, me and my wife had our 8th anniversary. We went out there for a week.
How bad was the heat?
It wasn't that bad in the shade. I spent a lot of time in the pool. It was about 110, 112 though.
It's gonna be 115 next week, apparently.
Yeah, man. Bring sunscreen with you, man.
Hey, people don't realize that, but I will not do nothing in the sun without sunscreen. When I play golf, sunscreen. Anything I do, sunscreen.
You got to. You will burn up out there, man. My nose and everything was peeling.
It's funny when I tell people that, but I'm glad you understand it. You got to have sunscreen.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Coach Blaylock, how's everything going in Cypress?
Man, it's a blessing in Cypress, man. We're having good sack camp. We just started back up again today. We took all last week off for the 4th of July break. Gave the kids a chance to go on vacations. But we got about 250, 260 kids working out every day from grades 9 to 12. We got other sports are also working out, doing summer conditioning. I think volleyball just started, so we're in full swing. Kids are bought in. You know, they're flying around. We got a couple of new kids, some transfers in. You know, it's a great time to be at the ranch, man.
That's great. Do y'all still use the MWT?
Oh yeah. We were going back to the white helmets for next year. You know, I talked to Coach Gene Johnson and kind of got some insight on what MWT came from, and just so these kids know the culture and the tradition of ranch, even though it's a fairly young school. They need to know, that this school's been in the state championship game before. They played some ranch, and so this generation needs to know about those guys and the key forwards and the guys that have come, through those hallways that were really, really good. So yeah, we still use NWT. It's on our new uniforms that we'll break out this year. It's on our workout gear.
People don't realize that, but that Cy Ranch State Championship run, that was they played a lot of competition. If I can remember, you played Dickinson, you played Converse Judson. I can't remember the rest, but I know you play Allen in the state championship game, and that was Colin Murray's senior year. Things go, went his way all year long. Well, his whole career, he never lost. So, I don't think that was on his plan to lose his last state championship game. But like you said, though, Cy Ranch is a school in the Cy Fair district that has made it to the state championship game. And I want to say Cy Fair is the only other school.
I think Falls went, and I believe they lost, and then Fairwind won it.
Yeah, Fair went and won it because Fair's been more than once, right?
I couldn't tell you. I remember watching them play when they went and won it, but I don't know the history of it.
It's crazy to see how the district has turned over because Cy Fair used to run that district, and now it's the district kind of spread out. You get a lot of the Katy schools involved, and it's not just the Cy Fair district. There's so many schools in that district now.
Oh yeah, we got 12 high schools, and we're actually split. So was it Creek, Ridge, Jersey Village, and Fair all go with Spring Branch Memorial, and they're actually Region 3. And then, of course, the rest of us are in the same district with Waller, and we're Region 2, which is crazy. In theory, you could have Ranch versus Falls in the state championship game, and we'd have to drive to Dallas to play it, and we're 10 minutes apart.
That's crazy. Is Gene Johnson still at Waller?
No, man, he's retired. He's doing some real estate stuff. I talked to him actually when I was looking to purchase a home.
Really?
We had some good conversations, but yeah, he got out of coaching.
That's great. Well, before we got on the show, we got the chance to talk. And when you called me today, I got to realize you have a 903 number. So you have East Texas roots. Will you talk a little bit about your journey and, where it all started at for you?
I'm born and raised in Tyler, Texas. I'm East Texas cat. That's why I won't change my number. I'm 903 all the way. Played at John Tyler High School for Alan Wilson, who's a Hall of Fame coach in his own right, but learned a lot from him. I still have my Cujo jerseys, hanging up in the closet. They don't fit no more, but I still got them.
Cujo.
And just that mentality. Blessed. I went to Tulane out of high school, signed a scholarship, stayed there 2 years, and then transferred to Baylor. Finished up, got a small chance at the NFL. Was with the Detroit Lions a little bit. Realized how small I actually was compared to those dudes. Then I got into coaching. Guy who actually is the head coach at A&M Kingsville now, Scott Parr. He was my GA when I was at Baylor, and he always told me he thought I'd be a good coach, and I thought he was crazy. But when I needed a job, I called him, so he gave me a GA job at West Texas A&M, and I was blessed to get my master's degree. And then I got into high school and been in it ever since. And been really blessed to work with and work for some state championship coaches, and Greg Owens in Sulphur Springs that won a state championship. Anthony Williams at Spring Decatur, they had just won a state championship. Jeff Reardon, who's the head coach of Tyler Chapel Hill now, that I think just played for it. He was my head coach in Crosby. Went back home to John Tyler, where Rick LaHolmes, the John Tyler alumni, was head coach, gave me my first offensive coordinator opportunity, and we did some really good things. So I've been around, been to Tomball, coached under Kevin Flanagan with Nick Caduti, that's now the head coach at Klein High. So
Shout out to Caduti.
And then got my first head coaching opportunity after I was at Fort Bend Hightower for 3 years as an OC and tight ends coach. Went up to Lubbock and froze for a little bit, some dust storms, some tumbleweeds, a couple of cotton fields, but met some really great people, got a really good opportunity, and was blessed with this opportunity here at Cy Ranch last year, and we hit the ground running.
So talk a little bit about your transition, at going to Cy Ranch. People didn't realize Cy Ranch had kind of, got away from the playoff team they used to be. And I'm not saying that, they weren't making the playoffs or, all those things, but, the caliber team they used to be. How is that like coming in and, getting that mindset? Like you say, you bring the NWT back, you bring the tradition back, and you want the people to understand that, hey, this is a program that's played in a state championship, in the last 10 plus years. So, this program's not dead. We're going to revive it and get everything going, the way I want it back going.
I mean, I got offered the job, I think, May 2nd last year. My first start date was like May 26th, and I get here, and then that's when the huge storm hit Houston. So I get out here, and they canceled the last week of school. So I had about 2 or 3 days to meet the players, and you could tell the kids were hungry. They wanted a fresh start. I got a great principal in Dr. Manis who was like, Coach, we want to change. Go hire who you need to hire to make the culture different. And I was blessed to bring in some great coaches. I have 7 coordinators on my staff, 2 former head coaches. So there's a lot of experience in our office. If you bring an idea to the board, you better have something behind it, because those guys are going to challenge you. And we hit the ground running with no spring ball, hiring coaches in the summer, and went 8-4, which I felt we were better than 8-4, but that's just the way it fell. But we won the first playoff game, I think, in 5 years. And the kids, that senior class, this last class that left, that they set the standard. They showed that it can be done. They showed that we could go get out of the first round and play with a great team like the Woodlands, who end up losing I think Duncanville. Who of course Duncanville is Duncanville, but our kids saw that they can play with anybody when they turn it on, and so that was good. They got a taste of it, and so all off season is about we want to be mentioned in the lights with those top teams. We want to be in the 4th, 5th round like Bridgeland was, like Duncanville's and North Crowley's. We want to be mentioned in that same realm, but we got a long way to go and a lot of work to do.
That's great. Quick question. I know it's a little off topic, but I want to ask you about it. So back when you were at Tulane and you made the transfer over to Baylor, what was the transferring like back then? I know was there a portal? How was it going?
Well, there was no portal or NIL, I can tell you that. There's a lot of dorm rooms and twin beds back then, but you had to get I had to send a list basically to Tulane of schools that I was interested in, and they had to approve that list. There were certain schools that I wanted to look at who, through the grapevine were interested in me, and Tulane was like, nope, either in conference or there's a scheduling conflict, and they could deny you and you couldn't go. So it worked out for me because I was coming off knee surgery, but when I finally got to Baylor, they were approved. I sat out the 2004 season, so I played 2, sat out 1, used my red shirt, and then I played 2 more, which for me personally, again, it worked out great because I was recovering from a major knee surgery. But compared to now, I could have been at Baylor on a Tuesday. The next week I'd have been there. But yeah, sat out a year, and it actually was a great year. I met some great people because I wasn't so focused on football. I was kind of like a regular student. I was just going to school,
Yeah.
going to rehab. So I had a blast. But yeah, it was totally different. Whew, man, 20 years ago.
So, you talk about all those things and how the portals change. You had to sit out, you didn't get the NIL deal. You had to stay in the dorm, twin beds. You got to be a regular college student, basically, with the patch that says I'm a student athlete. What do you think about today's world with the NIL and the transfer portal?
I think it's great that kids get to get compensated because they do bring in a lot of revenue for schools. And that's always been an issue. I played against Vince Young when he won that championship. And what he did for the University of Texas, I'm sure he generated a lot of income for their university. And yes, he got a free education, but he still brought in a whole lot of revenue to not be compensated for it. So you think about a player like him, Reggie McNeil at A&M at the time, Adrian Peterson in Oklahoma, what would they have gotten in the NIL market? Would have been insane. But at the same time, I think it does take away from the education part of it, which is what you go to school for. You go to college to get your education. Yes, it's a blessing. You can be compensated. Love it. A lot of kids can change their families' lives. They can change their own lives. They can do a lot if they got the right people around them and the right foundation. But something that just kind of triggered me, and I talked to my own sons who are getting recruited now, is you don't see the players say their majors anymore. A couple of years ago, it was always this guy's majoring in bio, whatever. This guy is general studies. This guy's whatever. Because there's so much movement, it limits what you can major in because not every university offers the same courses. So I hope they find a way to kind of streamline it and make it still about, the college atmosphere, getting your education, as well as the fact you're compensated.
Yeah, that's true, though. Like you say that because you listen to Arch Manning the other day and they were talking about his grades. And Arch Manning's basically like, I came here for one reason only.
Yeah.
Sling football. And it's great and all. Like kids like him, without football, he's gonna be great. No matter what. He can go be a broadcaster. He can go get a degree doing anything and be successful. But you look at a lot of kids that back in the early 2000s and before then that went to college on a football scholarship that maybe the NFL wasn't the way out, and they got their degree and they found that they had a chance to go do something bigger with their lives. If they got into coaching or anything else, it was an importance there to make sure we got that degree.
Yeah.
You look at recruiting and Nick Saban going to your house in the early 2000s. It wasn't, I'm sure money was involved, during those times somehow, but I'm sure mom and grandma or whoever was asking, dad who was asking, what's the education like? What's his school life gonna be like? How y'all gonna help him with tutoring and all those things? And I'm sure now mom and dad are sitting there listening, and Sarkeesian or whoever is sitting there saying, we're willing to pay you this much money to come here. And mom, dad, or grandma, whoever is looking at him like, that ain't a bad deal. You look at the kid from Timber Ridge, Mansfield Timber Ridge, Felix Ojo, commits to Tech.
Yeah.
5.3 million over 3 years. That's life-changing money. That's more money than some kids' parents have ever seen, their grandparents have ever seen. Like, how do you turn that down?
You can't. You just gotta pray that he has a good foundation around him and people that are in his ear and his family that they know what to do with that blessing, because that's what it is. It's a blessing that he's talented, that he has that ability, and they're willing to invest that much into him. Now you got to make sure that it moves forward and it's not wasted. But yeah, it's a different conversation now than it used to be. But I also think you have to be really grounded with kids because not everybody's going to the NFL. So you have a chance to change your life at 18, but you can't blow it by the time you're 21 either. So it's all about the community and the people around those kids when money comes involved, and things get different with money. But I think if you got a solid foundation and good people around them advising them, and they can take care of it, then you can change a lot of people's lives, and it becomes a really real blessing to a lot of people. And I think I try to look at it in that positive way, that these kids are getting a chance to help mom and dad and help grandparents who, when we came out, you couldn't provide it up. It was, you got to go to school, get a degree, and then you can help, which is 4 years down the line, hopefully. Now you say, hey, this is guaranteed, like the Ojo kid is guaranteed. This money's here. He can go help our people right now. So
do you think the 3-year deal is put on the table, therefore he doesn't have to, they know they don't have to worry about him transfer him?
I mean, and I don't know the whole details of the contract.
I'm sure it's a whole clause put together, and attorneys have looked over it day in, day out for a way out. Because, kids aren't thinking about, I'm going to go to this university for 4 years and I'm going to try to win a national championship. You know, they're just thinking about what's it going to take for me to get, you know, to take care of me nowadays.
And I'm sure there's some kind of clause that protects the bless you, that protects the university and the people that are supplying the money. They're not going to, you know, just throw it out there. I'm sure there's something in there, and that's the part of being compensated. You know, you're not technically an amateur anymore. You're an independent contractor, is what you are. So both sides are going to do things to protect their investment and protect their well-being. So I'm sure there's some wording in there that says if you try to transfer, either it stops or
something got to come back.
It's like, you know, when coaches leave, you know, there's a buyout, and that may be something you see in the future that they go to. Okay, we're gonna promise you this, and you're gonna sign for it. If you leave, though, we're gonna need some of that back.
Yeah. So how cool is it getting to go through this process with your own kid, getting to coach your kid on Friday nights, and also getting to go through the process of him, you know, being a future D1 commit? Because if you look at him, he's got some talent.
It's different. I never wanted to coach my sons. I never did. I always wanted to just be dad, and, you know, just be able to be there and have those moments where then I was blessed to be a head coach. And it's like, okay, my oldest son ended up playing for me in Lubbock. You know, he came back, finished out his career, and that was great to go through that with him and, you know, see the look on, to have those moments, senior night, walking out there, being a parent, you know, not just being the coach out there, but now I'm in line taking the pictures, you know. And then now having Deuce, who's going to be a senior, who's got a couple scholarship offers, and his younger brother actually has an offer, who's the incoming freshman. He's got an offer from UTSA, and the conversations are so different, but it helps that we have a lot of kids getting recruited at Ranch. So the conversations I'm privy to and in with recruiting also helps me with my own kids. You know, we have 25 kids right now that have at least one offer. So from all the way from Ohio States and Auburn's and Oregon's down to Howard Payne's in Division III. So I'm involved in a lot of conversations, and yes, I'm gonna help those families as much as I can as a head coach. You know, but also I can just kind of listen, and if it applies to my kids, I can also use that as well. But it's a good experience to coach. My son scored a touchdown last year, and for like 20 seconds, I was dad for like 20 seconds. Then I had to jump back into head coach mode. But to have those moments, it's a blessing.
That's great. So did y'all get a chance to do spring football this year?
Yeah, we got a chance to get, I think, 16 practices in. You know, in the midst of some kids playing baseball, some running track, making it all the way to regionals. You know, we were able to kind of finally get to install everything that we wanted because we didn't get a chance last year. So we got a chance to kind of clean the slate, start from scratch. This is our foundation. This is what we want to do and why we want to do it, you know, and kind of slow it down. You know, when you don't have a spring ball in 6A and you got 2 freshman teams, 2 JV teams, and a varsity with 75, you're hitting the ground running.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, so when we got the spring ball, we were able to say, okay, let's start from ground zero. No, these are the baby steps. This is why we're telling you this.
So if you look at your title, you're an athletic coordinator, then a head football coach. How do you handle being an athletic coordinator and the head football coach when you have maybe 5 starters in your baseball lineup, 5 starters, you know, running track, you know, all the way up until the end? How do you handle that, you know, making sure that you're not just stuck with the football mindset and, you know, keeping your mind thinking about your other coaches and your other sports?
Man, I have a great group of head coaches on my campus, and we communicate really well. You know, for kids doing 2 and 3 sports, which we have some of our really good players, they're participating in football and basketball and baseball or track, and you do what's best for the kid. At the end of the day, it's what's most beneficial for that kid to be successful. So as a coach, you check your ego at the door, and you say, okay, how can I work with the basketball coach? And then how can he work with a track coach or a baseball coach when no season ends? You know, and it's all about communication with the parent, with the kid, and just making sure that we don't burn a kid out. That's a lot on a 15, 16, 17-year-old, you know, to never stop all year round. Most kids do 2. So when you get those that do 3 and they're overlapping, you got to figure out a way. And it's just communication and practicing. And is it a varsity kid, or is he JV in one sport? Is he varsity in another? Which takes precedence? But you every school is different, and you work it out. But as a campus coordinator, you know, I'm involved. I got my hands in everything, and it's crazy. I may be in on a meeting with a tennis parent, and I don't know anything about what happened at tennis practice, but this parent has an issue that has to be addressed, and we got to handle it.
And so you got to come up with a solution.
Yeah, so I got to walk in there and put my coordinator hat on as campus coordinator, and, you know, treat that parent just like I treat the parent of my starting quarterback or starting linebacker or whatever, because they're just as important.
No doubt. So, Cy Ranch is a big school. It's Cypress Fairbanks is a huge district. How do you handle keeping, track of what kids you're going to get, what kids he's going to get, what kids he's going to get, so you're not overlapping? Because I remember when I was at Cy Ranch, it was like, I remember kids that played football talking about this. They were like, a lot of the high school coaches don't like to talk, plays and formations and all that stuff and yada, yada, yada to the younger guys, because you might end up at Woods, you might end up at Bridge. And I know that's changed now because of the zoning and, more schools opening. But how do y'all handle, making sure you're keeping your kids intact? Because you don't even pull from Fairfield anymore. They go to Park now.
Yeah, so, we have 3 middle schools that we primarily pull from, Smith, Anthony, and Spillane. And we get about 95% of Smith. It's right across the street. So you have a little bit more influence of it at that campus because you're getting 95% of those kids.
But didn't y'all used to get Spain?
Spillane? Well, Spillane is split between us and Woods.
Because it's right next door to Cy Ranch, right?
No, that's Smith.
Okay, that's Smith. Okay.
And so when we go over there, we know where the kids are zoned to. And when I go speak to those kids, it's one of those, hey, if you're zoned to Ranch, and they kind of section them off. And I'm sure when the Woods coaches go over there, those kids go over there. So you're only talking to the kids that are geographically zoned to you. Well, people move around, things change, but when we go over there, it's more about, we talk to kids about character. We talk to kids about doing what they're supposed to be doing. Because when I go to Anthony, we're split between us and South Springs. Coach Fagan is a great friend of mine. I'm going to tell them flat out, no matter where you go, you're going to be held accountable. No matter where you go, you're going to have to do what you're supposed to do. You're going to have to do right. So whether you're at South Springs, whether you're at Cy Ranch, either way it goes, we're going to take care of you. You be accountable. If you're not with us, we're going to compete hard against you. But if you're not playing us, I hope you win every game. I tell all those kids that you're going to get all the kids you're supposed to, and you're not going to get the ones you're not supposed to. That's how I look at it. Parents are going to do what's best for their kids and their eyes and their vision. And as a parent, I totally respect that. I'm going to put my kids in the best position to be successful as a dad, and so are the other parents there. But it as far as scheme, and everybody runs inside zone some kind of way. Everybody runs power some kind of way, a counter. It's a million ways you can call it, but it's the same thing. You get your kids coached up and they buy into your program, and then at the end of the day, they got to go out there and execute.
So you talk about formations and all those things. How important is it for you to have your hands on, like with the youth league and like the middle school football, making sure you're there for those games, making sure you're out watching the kids that you're going to receive one day?
Oh, it's very important. We divide our staff up amongst our 3 feeders, because there's not one guy. Like, I can't be everywhere, and no coach can. And they play on two Mondays and Tuesday nights, so we're in practice a lot. So you kind of schedule it. Hey, coach, toward the end of practice, need you to head over to Spillane and watch them play so and so. Another coach may be going to Anthony, another coach may be going to Smith, and you just kind of rotate it. That way, you're building those relationships, and the kids see you, and the parents see us out there, and we're visible. And every school does it. And you're just cheering those kids on, because you don't know where the chips are going to fall. That kid is in the 7th grade. That's a stud that's saying, I'm going to Ranch. I always want to go to Ranch. By the end of the 8th grade, parents may move, and you look up, he's at Side Lakes or he's at Bridgeland. But that's still a kid, man. At the end of the day, it's his life. It's his parents. My reps are already done. I ain't got no more snaps in these bad knees. So wherever that kid goes, I just wish them success. But you got to be visible and be there and let them know that they have support. And if they are coming to you, hey, this is who we are. This is getting to know on a personal basis.
That's great. So, you starting off as a young coach, you talk about your GA that helped you a lot at Baylor. How important is it to you when you have young coaches on your staff to be there for them and show them the right way to do things? Like, just because such and such didn't tell you to do this, I want you to do it on your own. I want you to be here for this. I want you to be here for that. We might not ask you to be there, but we want you to, it's known that we want you to be there. And, we want you to, contribute to, just not being there during the day and coaching during the day, making sure you have your hands on these kids outside of football, outside of school.
One, I have to model it as a head coach, as the person in charge. It's my job to show that. So, they may see me at a water polo tournament, which is actually very entertaining, by the way. Like, we have a great water polo team.
It is.
I'm going to try to go watch baseball, softball, basketball, soccer. I may not stay the whole time, but I'm going to try as much as I can to be visible. And so then I can't tell you to do something that I wouldn't do. I was the laundry guy when I was at Estacado in Lubbock, so my assistant coaches could work on the weekend. I'd go wash uniforms. and so they see if the boss is doing it, then I don't have a reason not to because he has more on his plate than anybody else. But you help those young coaches because this is a different generation. You get a kid 22, 23, he's in the same generation as my son at 17. So that kid didn't grow up seeing the old school coaches that worked 7 days a week, that were grinding. They don't know that. So how do you get them to that level, that mentality with all the technology they have now? And everybody's got a social media platform and everybody's got so many things pulling them away from coaching and teaching. You have to demonstrate to them, one, you got to be a great teacher. I think my coaches are some of the best teachers in the campus. I put any of my coaches from any sport up against anybody. So one, be a good teacher, and you put them in contact with people who can help them organize their classroom first. You can organize your classroom, your position group is easy. That you just added a football to it. And if you don't do good in the classroom, chances are you're not going to be good on the field either. So, but just mentoring them, and you run into guys that are, like I said, 22, 23, and this is their first job, especially if they've been playing and they've been getting paid and they haven't had to do anything. They haven't had to clock in and be somewhere with khakis and a polo on at 7 o'clock a.m. and they might not get off till 8 o'clock p.m. And, there's a kid whose parent hadn't come to pick him up yet and they got to wait in the parking lot with him because he's in their position group. And
I got to pick the kid up, take him to practice, take him home.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, and you teach them how to build relationships with these kids and find out, because they're young, so they're like, man, this kid should be doing X, Y, and Z. Well, you don't know what's going on at home. You don't know what that kid is dealing with at 14, 15 years old that's stopping him from being as good as he could be. But if you build a relationship and you get that trust factor there, now you learn what makes that kid tick. And now you see what that kid is going to be about. And we just try to model it as much as possible. I have a great group of coordinators and older coaches. We have a good mix. I think our oldest coach is 54. Then we got coaches all the way down to like 24. So, and my oldest coach, you would never think he was in his mid-50s because he got more energy than all of us.
Really?
But just to having that good mix of the seasoned veteran and the young, energetic guy, who's just trying to learn and trying to learn everything he can, and you need that. And so I think we put together a great group of those young coaches. You don't hold their hand, but you give them a little responsibility. You hold them accountable. You praise them when they do something right. Like anybody else, they want to feel that congratulations when they accomplished the task. And you just keep building on what their strengths are.
And that's the thing. Like, even in my job, like the guys that work for me on my sales team, it's like they can get burnt out.
Oh, yeah.
So, you try to keep it, the environment, happy, chat, like fun. I like to do a lot of, what would you call it? Let's see. Competing. That'd be a good word for it. Like, I like to keep competition high in the office because it brings excitement to me. I'm a big sports guy and like competition is everything. So I try to bring it to my work life. And like you say, if they see you doing something, then they know it's like, okay, it ain't, that bad to have to do these things. It's okay to do these things. And I know in the coaching world, getting to talk to a bunch of coaches, it's like I got to talk to Coach Todd last week and something he said stood out to me. He's like, if you want a kid to play for you that bad, then you're willing to go make sure you meet with the counselor. You're meeting with the administrators, making sure he's in class, making sure he's getting the job done. He might not have a ride everywhere. You're making sure you're doing, your coaches are, they know it's, if he plays in your position group, make sure he's here. Make sure he's accounted for. Make sure he's on time. Make sure he's in tutoring when he needs to be in tutoring. And I think a lot of coaches might not be in it for the right reason. I think it's more of just a job to some coaches than it is to a lot of coaches that used to do this. You look at a lot of the coaches that have been doing this for 20 plus years, this is all they know. This is it. Like you see a lot of young coaches getting into coaching, looking for a way out of coaching. Yeah, there's more money and more opportunities other places. But when coaches 20, 30 years ago signed up to be a coach, this is all they knew and this is all they wanted to do. And it meant something to them. They cherished it.
Yeah, it's a different generation. I've been coaching, this is year 17. And it's truly a calling because if you'd have met me in college, there's no way I'd have told you I was going to be a coach. I mean, I was a class clown in high school, and I loved school, but just it's a calling. When you start building those relationships and you see the impact you have, now that, I'm in year 17 and I'm getting wedding invitations from former players and coach, me and my wife just had our first kid and coach, I got this job. Can you help me? You remember how we used to practice. Can you teach me that? That lets you know that you're doing it the right way. I have a kid that's coaching for a good friend of mine And a friend of mine called me and said, "Man, I thought you were at practice. This kid knows every phrase you ever used when we were coaching together." I said, "Well, at least he heard something. At least I know he was paying attention." So that's the what I get out of it. And when you're in this thing, you realize people ask me about becoming the head coach or what did it take, the process. I said, one, I never really thought about it until other people brought it to me. And then two, I said, when you go interview head coaching jobs, they don't ask you about football. They know you can coach football. It has nothing to do with X's and O's. It has to do with, can you handle people? Can you manage people? Can you build relationships? Can you get people to work together? Same thing you do in the corporate world. But like you said, we compete a lot, offense versus defense. Our coaches, like I said, we got a lot of seasoned veterans in there. My DC is my brother-in-law. So we go at it in practice, and it's all fun, but then the kids get riled up too. And you make practice that way. It's still fun. At the end of the day, it's still a game. No matter what sport it is, it's a game. So when you do different scenarios and different competitions, kids get riled up and you bring that energy. And for me, that's kind of my fix. Like I can't play anymore, but I need to feel that adrenaline rush, watching our kids go on third down against each other, a red zone. And you see that kid that may not usually make a play, and he's been practicing and it finally happened for him. Now that kid's bought in. He's seen his work pay off and the teammates see it. So now they're congratulating him. Well, that's culture. And now everybody's locked in. And, when you see that kid that was freshman C team, he couldn't put his cleats on right, pads was on backwards. And by his junior, senior year, he's a player for you.
Can't give up on those kids.
Yeah, those qualities that you put into that kid, he's going to use them when he gets to be a grown man, in life. That same perseverance he used in athletics, he's going to use it when he's a dad and he's a husband or at his job when he's going through hard times. Growing up at JT, it was Cujo. It was never quit, never die. I still use that. Like, times get hard, you never quit, you never die. Like, I don't know anything else. I was so programmed in it coming up, and now as a professional and as a dad and a husband, we're going to fight through it. Never quit, never die. We're going to get, we're going to make it happen. So that's to me why you do it. And I think a lot of people get in it and then they realize they love it and they stay. It's just keeping them to pass those first 2 or 3 years when it's kind of rough. You need somebody over you, mentoring you, showing you the ropes.
I'm going to throw 2 questions at you. But before I throw those 2 questions at you, the guy we talked about, the Lufkin great, one of the Lufkin greats we talked about before we went on the camera, y'all could be twins. You know who I'm talking about. But you talk about, the Cujo mindset and all those things. Do you bring a lot of that East Texas swagger with you to the Houston area in your coaching? Because, I will say one thing. Coaches in the city, I'm sure, have to be a lot more careful what they say to a kid compared to being back in East Texas. Because one thing about it, this kid, his uncle, his brother, his dad, his grandpa, his grandmother, you can handle him like he's one of yours. And then you get to the city and it's just spread out and it's a whole different culture of kids in the city. You have to connect with them a certain way. The same way you might talk to a kid at John Tyler. I'm going to still call it John Tyler. You can't talk to that kid maybe at Sour Ranch. You have to handle that kid a little bit different due to the fact that he was brought up a little bit different.
Kids are kids. At the end of the day, when you take out all the stuff outside away, they're still a football player. They're still kids. So, and I'm going to be me. And I think that's also building relationships with parents. When you have your parent meetings and you're talking to them in between practices and you see them in the grocery store, you just be yourself and you be genuine. I'm going to coach kids hard. My staff is going to coach them hard, but we're never going to disrespect the kid. We're never going to disrespect the parent. We may agree to disagree, but I have 2 sons in this program. And like I tell all the parents, I'm going to coach them just like I coach the two knuckleheads that live upstairs. I'm going to be hard on them, but at the end of the day, I love all of them. Whether he's a 9th grade, B team kid, or whether he's a varsity kid with 35, 40 offers, I'm going to love on them the same. And my expectation is going to be the same because I expect for them to be the best version of themselves. So, now granted, the tactics we used in the 90s and 2000s, the game has changed. A lot of those techniques cannot be used anymore. You get ejected out of games. But at the same time, you still got to be on these kids because they live in a different world and they get attacked from so many angles and they got to have a thick skin. And, you got to help them with that and still be there and just, follow up the fundamentals and morals that they're taught at home. We just keep reiterating those on the football field and trying to get them to be the best young men and young people they can be. From how you respect women, how you respect your parents. When we talk to our young athletic trainer ladies who do a great job, we'll stop practice and say, hey, this is how you respect and treat this young lady. You all have sisters, moms, aunts, grandmothers. If you won't say it in front of them, you don't say it out here. And should something get uttered that's not supposed to, we will have team building activities, to emphasize that that's not what we're going to be about. So, the same way, Alan Wilson, we ran 1640s every day. And everybody always wondered why. When I got here, we ran 1640s. When I was at Estacado, we ran 1640s. It takes 16 weeks to win the state championship game. Every time you win, you take one off. So the goal is, how close can you get to 0? Hopefully we get down to 1, and it's the last week in December, and we're getting on 45 North headed to Dallas. But that's that mentality. Like that. We want to play 1640s. Every day after practice is going to be 1640s.
So do y'all do that like in the summertime also?
We do a couple of different conditionings in the summer, kind of change it up, speed work versus a little distance. And then in off season, we run a quarter every day after workout. I don't care if it's raining. I don't care if it's cold. We're going to go outside and finish with a 400. Ooh. Everything, that's the hardest race in track. And it's timed. We had college coaches come out and watch us, and they thought we were crazy. Like, coach, it's raining. Where the boys going? They're going to the track. They're going to run this 400. The faster you run it, the faster you get it over. You come back inside. But we're going to sell out and give everything we got every day so that hopefully come the fall, we're one holding that trophy at the end.
So I played for my freshman year. I played football at Lufkin. Long year I played, and we had a couple young coaches fresh out of college getting their job, getting their time started at Lufkin. They were Lufkin greats, played at Lufkin, and some parents might have thought they were crazy the way they talked to us and the way they handled us, and some of the things they put us through. But like, you look back at all those moments. And they didn't make you, they didn't hurt you. They didn't, put their hands on you or anything. But the choice of words they used, it was not hate. It was love at the end of the day. And you look back at all those moments and how they build you as a man now. All those bear crawls and those grass drills and sprints. And, you know how it is in East Texas in August. Yeah. You're a freshman out there for the first time in summer football with a helmet and shoulder pads on, and you get done beating the living crap out of each other in practice, and they blow that whistle and tell you to get on the line. Man. And you're back and forth, and you're on a timer, and that whistle ain't stopping. And if somebody misses one, everybody's punished for it. And you look back at all those moments and things, and you look at life now, because I tell kids all the time, I see kids, they tell me all the time, man, I can't wait till I get a job and start making money. I can buy this, and that. I'm like, dude, you don't realize how good you have it right now. Don't try to get to this moment in life, because I tell you right now, it's not what everybody, makes it out to be. It's hard.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, like I said, those practices, grass fields, stick bugs, East Texas, dirt flying, full pads every day. And everybody who went through it, we'd all go back to it if we could. Now we look on those moments with visions of grandeur, and it's like, man, those were the good old days. And it was, because we knew those coaches loved us, but that came from the relationships they had. They were in the community. They knew, like I said, they knew your dad, they knew your uncle, they knew your big brother played there. They knew you. So there was a level of respect. I've been knowing the John Tyler alma mater since I was 6 years old. All I ever wanted to do was be a Cujo Lion. Like that was my goal in life, was to get that jersey with my name on it. And I knew what it was going to take to get it.
And go try to beat Lufkin.
Yeah, and we were in the District of Doom. It was Lufkin, Longview, Marshall, Nacogdoches. Every school except NAC went to state in a 10-year period. No other district can really say that. And now, except for maybe the Duncanville district, they've had great runs. But you're talking about every week, it was going to be physical. It was going to be a war. Their town hated your town. Police escorts to go to games. That was Friday Night Lights, though. And so it's a little different now because you're in the city. It's bigger. But, getting these kids to understand that, one, they can play with anybody, but two, the lessons you learn now, you're going to take it with you. Some of these practices are going to seem hard. We did offseason on the grass. When we would go out and do drills, we were on the grass. Whether it was raining, we're going to get dirty. We're going to get muddy. We're going to get physical, because That's old school football. When you get in the playoffs and you make deep runs, it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be some plays that, hey, you just got to make it happen. And once they got into it, they loved it.
You remember those first days of practice when you first get your pads and like you go, what do they call it, half shell? And then the next week, because you probably start half shell later in the week. And then that next Monday, you know full pads is coming. And all you've been hearing about these older guys talking, you got tackling drills. You got to get under that sled and all that. Get under that chute. That's what I think we called it in Lufkin. And I was like, you hear all those rumors and stuff. And you get out there and it's 110 degrees. You've been doing inside hole, pass hole, all those things. And then you got tackling drills. And it's nonstop. Nobody wants to get at the front of the line. And then that one coach that knows you, get up there. I want you in such and such. And, it's just like, it's crazy to look at where the, football has went now as far as high school football. These kids are like practicing in indoors with air conditioner. All of those fancy things nowadays, like the UIL has mandatory breaks and all that stuff now. That stuff was unheard of when y'all were playing football. You knew you were going to line up week 1 or week 2 or week 3, and you were going to play Lufkin, Longview, Marshall, and you got to go play Longview for 4 quarters. They're going to line up and they're going to pound you and pound you and pound you. And you played D-line. So you knew
O-line.
O-line, I'm sorry. You played O-line. So you knew what it was like in the trenches. And, just think about like all those games you played when you were at John Tyler, that all that conditioning and summer workouts the game came down to the last wire, and coach give you that message. If you quit now, you quit then.
Yeah. And it was all perspective. But we were different kids growing up. We were outside. We were like the sand. Like we rode bikes across town. We were jumping fences, climbing trees, jumping off houses, like doing stuff that really was probably kind of stupid. We really probably should not have done some of that stuff. But it was a great time to grow up. Whereas now you got a generation of technology. They're more specialized. When we played street football when we were kids, everybody knew how to cover because it was you got him, I got him, you got him. But it means you know how to open your hips and run. You know how to cross over. You know how to karaoke. Without ever going to a trainer, you knew how to do it. You knew who was scared to hit because they never ran on the sideline because that's where you got hit. So that's how you find out who your basketball players were. That dude don't like to get hit. He's probably going in the gym. He probably ain't going to be out here with us. But nowadays, you have to still incorporate some of those mentalities into practice. You find ways to do it and say, hey, man, this is full tilt. We're in full pads. I remember that sound of walking to the field, that click clack of those cleats on that concrete, and you knew what kind of day it was going to be. And so you have to mimic that in smaller portions, but you got to find a way to get that intensity out of them. And that's on me as a coach and my coordinators to make sure we put that into practice that, hey, man, these next 10 minutes, it is full tilt. It is go time. You better bring your lunch pail with you. And then you put those kids in there. Hey, Johnson, you ain't been in, man. Let's see what you got. Because that's the only way to find out. You got to go through it. And either he's gonna step up or he's gonna buy out. It's real simple.
So you talk about the coaching staff you built, the older age, the young generation of guys. You finally get a full spring to install, the Blaylock way. It's finally everything is going your way now. How is that going to transpire into this next season compared to last season?
Just be a lot more sound in what we do. When you don't get a spring ball and you don't have that off season, your fundamentals and development aren't there as concrete because you're trying to marry some of the concepts and schemes that they're used to and that they know with what you want to bring in. Because you just don't have the time, the hours. And then even we were hiring coaches up until July. So you don't have a full staff yet to just really say, this is Coach so-and-so. He's going to be this coach. He's going to do this. You're just trying to put in a big picture. It's what we wanted to look like. And there were times when they would hit it running. And then there were times when things, so a guy would be off, but you're talking about a kid you've only known for 2 or 3 months. And now you're in a ball game against Katie Tompkins, in a 1.2 point game, they're going to revert back. Like that's human nature. So you can't be mad at them. But now having the full year, having the summer, going through the things we've done in 7-on-7, the work our kids have been getting, I think we're a very talented team, but I also think we're a very hardworking team. I think these kids that they put in, we've had a couple of bloody noses. We've had some ripped shirts in off season. We had a couple of little scuffles here and there, but they know how to fight. They know how to go at it. And I think that's going to show in the fall.
So you open up the season this year with Katie Tompkins again. You lose to them by one point last year. What's the message there going into it? Because I hear coaches already talking about 1-0, week 1, 1-0. Start the season off 1-0. How important is it for your kids to know that we came short last year, but this is a new year, new season. We prepared better. You went through my off season this year. You went through my spring. You went through my summer workouts, my 707 program. So the message this year, we got to come into this game with a different plan.
Tell them to finish. We were up 20-0 at halftime last year, and we pulled the foot off the gas. So the message is to finish, and that was the message all last season. You can't come out of the gate like gangbusters and let up, because nobody's going to give us anything. We understand there's a bullseye on our back because we got a lot of kids getting recruited. There's a lot of positive vibes around our team, a lot of media hype, and it's all appreciated and warranted. But like I told our kids before the break, you not have to go show that that's justified. You got to go win. All the offers and all the accolades and all that is great, and it looks great on paper. If you don't win, then it doesn't matter. So now that work, that you put in the spring, you can't let it slack, because now you got to go justify why we're ranked in a certain position or why, these schools are talking to you. You got to go showcase that. And you got to play with a chip on your shoulder, because everybody's going to give you their Super Bowl. Everybody's going to. South Park hadn't won a game in 3 years, and I'm sure Coach Lawrence is working his butt off to change that. But nobody wants to be the game that they lose to. But they're going to give us their Super Bowl like they did last year.
It's like losing a NAC.
Yeah, but NAC was going to play you tooth and nail because it was pride on the line. Everybody's going to give us their best game. And I tell them, nobody's afraid of us. You're going to have to walk in there and take it. It's not about who we're playing. It's about us. It's about us executing and being the best Cy Ranch team we can be. But I think we're capable of doing it.
So you talk a lot about the kids and offers and all that. Who are some seniors coming in this year that we need to be on the lookout for at Cy Ranch?
Our 26 class is pretty up there. Calvin Thomas is a 4-star linebacker, got 30+ offers, great athlete, really, really good kid. And that's the best thing about our team is we have great kids. Like, you can tell they've been raised right. You can tell the where they come from. We don't have to deal with a lot of the off the field issues, but they're really good kids. But you got Calvin, Aiden Combs, our middle linebacker, just committed to North Texas. He's going to be a 3-year starter. Quincy Chiku, a defensive end, just committed to Rice. 3 senior stalwarts, they all played last year. Valuable experience. Offensive line-wise, Kerrick Winters, going to be a 3-year starter for us. At center guard, can play tackle, may play a little D tackle for us. Aiden Taylor's going to be a 3-year guy up front. We got guys in key positions. Peyton Thomas is a running back with FCS offers, ran for 1,200 yards last year. Joel Arnett is a 6'5" receiver that's committed to Army right now. My son Deuce is a tight end. He's got 4 offers. He might play a little linebacker for us. Jonathan Long, Tyler Smith, the linebacker. We're 8 deep with senior linebackers who all can play. Like, most teams don't have it.
That goes a long way.
And so you're talking about depth. You're talking about competition. You mess up a rep, there's another guy ready to go, who's locked in. And you got guys around him, Connor Dandridge, a wide receiver that transferred back to us from Bridgeland, that is a playmaker that a lot of people haven't seen yet. So we got kids in this senior class, and they're leaders. It's getting to be where the coaches don't have to correct anybody. The players are doing it. And when you get players to start leading and policing each other, that's when you got a chance to be special.
You see, I like how you said that, because I talked to a coach in College Station 2 or 3 weekends ago, and he's a coach in y'all's district, and he was talking about like the summer workouts, how many kids they had showing up and things, and he was like, it's so hard at certain positions because you have so many kids at that position ready to take over. And you look at a lot of schools, it's like, I know, you go to a smaller school, I know where I'm playing at. I know this guy behind me can't, have a chance to stand beside me. But you go to a district like y'all, and you go to a school like y'all with the size, and it's like there's always a spot for the next man up. No matter how good you are, there's always somebody behind you chipping at the bit, ready to go.
Yeah, and if you need that competition, there's no complacency. I always tell the kids all the time, my depth chart is in pencil, and it's like that for a reason. If you don't bring it every day, it's like in the corporate world. If you don't come every day and you don't produce, there's somebody else wanting that job. These are guys who have college aspirations. We tell them all the time, whatever school you sign with, if you're blessed to get an offer, there's a guy already there that's a starter. And he'll be damned, excuse my language, if he lets a freshman come in and take his job. Just like when you're the guy, you're not going to let some kid out of high school come take your job. The same way you wouldn't let a freshman out of middle school come take your job. But if he's good enough, I'm going to play him. Understand that coach is going to play the best 11 that he can put on the field. Product.
No, that's all true. And like you say that about the college level, I think a lot of, kids are so caught up in, I was a 3-year starter in high school. I was a 4-year starter in high school. That doesn't matter at the next level. There's kids in the portal that are 3 or 4 years older than you, ready to come do what you do with a lot more experience than you do. So you have to be prepared for every situation, especially in high school football. Like you said, there's no room for just being complacent. There's always somebody there wanting what you have. They want your spot. And I think a lot of kids are not used to that, having to compete or having to worry about that. And they get to the next level and it's like, what do I do? So like you talk about that. I love that y'all do that because it's preparing you for the real world. If you decide not to play football, it's preparing you for the real working world.
Yeah, you got to go compete. I told them it's real simple. I said, everybody wants to date the cute girl, but everybody doesn't get it. You're going to have to go compete. The woman you marry, somebody else thinks she's attractive too. So you got to put your best resume forward to go and get her. And it's like that with anything else, and so we try to provide that competitiveness. Yeah, we know who our guys are, who are proven, but at the same time, we had a freshman play for us last year. He ended up being All-American. This time last year, he was coming out of 8th grade. Well, he went, competed, and took a job, and now, he's got the world in his hands if he wants it. And he's a great kid, but I told him if he's the best one, he's going to play. We don't care that he's 14, 15 years old. He can play. So, and that kind of showed those guys, hey, man, coach will play a freshman fresh out of Smith Middle School. If he's the best one in his position. But that lights that fire under him. Hey, man, you got to bring it every day. It's a lunch pail mentality. You better come ready to go to work.
So you talk about this freshman, he's All-American, all that. So you're a coach that's okay with playing the younger guy.
Yeah. The best guy is going to play. When I was at Estacado, I think I played 5 freshmen, and we went 10-3. At the 6A level, it is a lot more rare to play a freshman because of numbers. But if you got a kid that's special, you're not going to hold him back. If he physically can handle it and mentally can handle going against those guys, then you don't limit a kid or hold him back, in my opinion. Now, everybody's philosophy is different, to each his own, however they work. But when you get kids that are special and they're working hard and they're grinding, why not? Now, again, they're going to have to go take a job. Like we tell them when we go talk to the middle school, we have starters who have went through spring, went through summer. They're not going to let some kid that's in English 1 just randomly come in and take their job. You're going to have to go take it. And if you can do so, then we'll look at it when that gets to that point. And those are usually few and far between. But yeah, you got to have that competition, and that's just an example. But now those kids know, hey, coach will play a kid that was playing in middle school on Wednesdays last year if I don't have my stuff together, if I ain't producing.
Need the best Coach Allen Wilson story from the Cujo days.
Let's see that's internet safe. Nah. Coach Wilson, like I say, great guy. My senior year, we're playing Arlington Boo, and 9/11 happens my senior year. And 9/11 happens on Tuesday. We play on Friday because, like Coach said, there's nothing to blow up in Tyler, Texas. We were not a target on anybody's radar. So we play this game, and unbeknownst to me at the time, the head coach at Arlington Bowie was one of Allen Wilson's great friends, Anthony Chris, great coach, another mentor of mine in coaching. And we're winning 47-0 in the second quarter. Like we're running every play we're calling is working. Right before the half, the lights go out. So of course, what does everybody think? It's a terrorist attack. They're gonna bomb the stadium. It's 10,000 people in Tyler, Texas. So Wilson calls us up. It's halftime. And if you ever heard Allen Wilson talk, he has a real high-pitched voice. It's everybody get in, go in the locker room like it's real high-pitched. And we go in there. Our starting defensive tackle tore his ACL on the play. The lights went out. Nobody saw him. So they're doing a head count. Wilson's like, anybody seen him? I'm like, no, he's on the field. They wheel him by on a gurney, leg messed up. He goes off. Well, we go out by second half, and it's 47-0. Game's over. Wilson takes everybody out. Which anybody knows about Plano East in 1994, Wilson took his starters out, had to come back and all that. The other team scores 28 straight points. Wilson gets mad, walks out to the numbers, tells the other coach, Coach Chris, is this what we're going to do? He's like, ones, y'all are back in. Mind you, we've been drinking Gatorade for a quarter.
Chilling.
Shirts untucked. We're looking in the stands. We're talking to, hey.
What are we doing tonight?
Yeah. So we now go back in this game. We drive the ball. We're in the wing tee, so it's smash mouth. We drive to the 3-yard line. Wilson walks back out to the numbers and tells that coach, we finished. And the coach kind of threw his hands up like he conceded. Wilson looked at us and said, take a knee. And we're like, you just called us off the bench, drinking Gatorade, made us drive 80-something yards to take a knee at the 2-yard line. And he did it to prove a point. We're pissed because, again, I'm full of Gatorade right now.
You could have been sitting on that sideline still.
Yeah, but he did it to prove a point, and his point was made. We didn't have any more problems after that. But you talk, man, there's so many Allen Wilson stories, no matter who you ask. I've had my butt chewed out after winning a big game. We beat Waco High in the 4th round of the playoffs. We were down 21-0, came back, tied it up, go 21-all, go into overtime. And that's Derrick Johnson, LaQuayla McDonald went to Waco, Vince Carter went to Oklahoma. Like, they were loaded. We beat them in overtime. Everybody rushes the field. Tran Cujo. Wilson's pissed. We get in the locker room, and it is dead silence. He cusses out Aaron Ross, me, Tim Crowder went to Texas, Matt Melvin went. We had like 9 or 10 Division I dudes. He goes left. Said, when I open this door, you better have your bag on your shoulder, get your Whataburger, and get your ass on the bus, or you will walk back to Tyler, Texas. They open the door. There's 5,000-6,000 people. They're screaming. Cujo, they had we won. There was a single foul line. Not one player said a word. Everybody grabbed their box, got on the bus. Nobody said nothing. All the fans were in shock. I'm like, man, he's crazy. He will really make us walk back to Tyler for it. We firmly believed it. But
that's great, though. What grade were you in when Tyler and Plano East played each other in that game? Like one of the greatest games in high school football.
I was young. I was like 5th, 6th grade. My cousins were on that team. I was there.
Were you there for it? Like, what was the stadium like?
I mean, it was great for 3.5 quarters. I mean, the game blew open in the 4th quarter. It's over with. We're looking to go to the semifinals, I think it was. And then it started snowballing, and you're like, this can't be happening. Like this really isn't happening. And so after the 3rd onside that they fumbled and Plano gets it back, people started leaving because you could just feel the momentum was sucked out of the place. And, they score and go up. And so everybody wants Allen Wilson fired, and he doesn't know what he's doing and blah, blah, blah. Well, nobody really paid attention. That kickoff return team was not the kickoff return team. Those were the best 11 players on that team. The All-American defensive end, David Warren, Morris Anderson, the starting quarterback, Mark Bros, the starting D tackle, they all went on kickoff return. And the guy that ran it back actually muffed 2 of the kicks. His name was Roderick Dunn. He actually had muffed 2 of them, but he was a Division I point guard and a football player. He's the one that took it back to the house, but he had muffed 2 of them. And I was in the locker room, but I heard it was the same thing. I heard Wilson went left because it should have never been in that situation.
Could you not imagine being in that locker room?
Man, I know you probably could have heard a pin drop. If Allen Wilson goes off, nobody talks. It is dead silent. Trainers, coaches, it don't matter. You better not say nothing.
That's how people laugh about those things, but like that's how a coach has earned his respect. His guys respect him.
Oh, Allen Wilson he loved us, man. He got a lot of us in the college, got a lot of us opportunities that we may not have had. Even once I started coaching, I'll call him, coaches, this is a good job. Coach, what do you think about this situation? And he's always going to shoot from the hip. He's going to tell you exactly how he feels. But, you need those. Those are the reasons why I coach. Him, his staff, they were together 20 years. 3 different schools, 2 state championships. Then they coached in 2 more. But you're talking about a group of 5 or 6 guys, wives included, together 20 plus years. That doesn't happen. That's rare.
It's rare. Well, Coach Blaylock, we thank you for taking the time to come on live from the Pines. It means a lot to us to get to sit down and talk to you, hear some great stories, and get to be a part of what you're building in Cypress. I think Cy Ranch is in great hands and made a great hire. And I think that, it's only up from here for you guys. And, I think you're running a successful program. It's old school, a lot of competition, a lot of hard-nosed football, and that's what the world needs. All high school football needs that. A lot of kids are just getting handed opportunities off of rankings and offers and all that, and they're not having to compete for anything. And you're doing nothing preparing kids for the next level, because a lot of kids get to the next level and it's a whole new world, and it's a life breaking moment. Getting to see your name not on that one spot on the depth chart.
Yeah, we're trying, like I say, brick by brick, day by day. But these kids are buying in, man. The community's behind them. Like I said, we got a great group of kids. They love to show up and go to work. We never have to really worry about where a kid is. If he's missing, we know it. We've gotten a phone call. We've gotten a text. So, they're putting the foundation there to have a really special season.
That's great. Coach Blaylock, Live from the Pines, will definitely be following the Mustangs. We wish y'all nothing but the best. Hopefully we get to see you guys in Arlington. Texas high school football world. The Live from the Pines hats are out. We finally got them back in. I'll be sending them out to all the coaches that have been on Live from the Pines. Got to get you one, Coach Blaylock. We had a big delay in shipping. We put an order in, got it messed up, got pushed behind, getting the all-stars in sports and everything. And, we got put on the back burner, but they took care of us. They got our hats out. They look great. So, coaches, be on the lookout. Hats will be heading y'all's way. We appreciate y'all. Coach Blaylock, thank you again for coming on the show. We wish y'all nothing but the best. Y'all have a great night. Make sure like, subscribe, follow us on all socials. If you haven't yet, go pick up your Zilker belt. Use discount code PINES936 for all online orders. Really having, shop them, new shorts, apparel. Our guy, Lil Malcolm, taking care of the podcast. We appreciate you for everything you do. Use discount code Really Having Fam to receive 25% off all online orders. Thank you again, Coach Blaylock.
All right, appreciate it.